Marc LaBelle of Dirty Honey.
How are you?
What's going on, brother? Thank you so much for taking some time here to join us, man.
Yeah, no worries.
I've been pounding your album the last few days, and it's going really well with those sunny days, those cold beers.
Yeah, totally. The wings, the barbecues.
Absolutely, man. So you guys released this, during the pandemic, and it's turned out pretty well for you. Was there ever talk in your camp of like, I don't know, maybe we should hold off?
Yeah, the only reason for that would have been in terms of recording it and like getting in the same room as the producer instead of doing it like this via Zoom with him.
Right.
Um that was looking back like I never want to do that again.
What a
You know what I
crazy,
mean?
like, did you guys all manage to evade COVID?
No, I've probably had it like 5 times now.
Right.
Um I didn't get it during lockdown though. I got it maybe it was kind of on the back end of maybe that second year.
Mm.
The first time I got it, I literally was at hockey. I was doing some work for a friend and helping him out doing locations for a photo shoot with J-Lo of all people. Not that I don't know her or anything like that. I was just working this thing.
Yeah.
And it's obviously very high-end talent or whatever, and they make you get COVID tested before you come to the photo shoot set. And I went to this testing site, didn't think anything of it, felt completely fine, went to hockey, came back from hockey with like a dozen voicemails from the producer who was like, "You have COVID." Like, I was like, fuck, man.
What?
And then yeah, the next day I felt like total shit for probably 48 hours, and then it was fine.
Wow. So how much did the pandemic affect, the game plan as a band?
Yeah, it derailed us pretty good, honestly. I mean, derailed everybody and everything. But
Yeah.
we were supposed to be in Europe, we were supposed to do Australia, Japan. Obviously the Black Crows tour got delayed. It affected everything we were doing. It
Mhm.
affected the recording, it affected your ability to write, your willingness and desire to write. You're just kind of there's all these question marks. So
Yeah. I talked to probably, I don't know, 100 musicians over the 2 years. And I would say a good, a third of them were like, yeah, man, I just lost like the motivation to write, and I just kind of lost the motivation to play. And like, holy man, that's crazy.
it was tough. I said during the pandemic, I was like, it's tough to write songs about life when you're not living like a life. You're just kind of
Right.
in your apartment every day, going to the grocery store. There's nothing to do. You're not interacting with people. You're going through the same Groundhog Day sort of like situation every single day for 2 years. It was terrible.
Right.
But we found a little light in there, and we got together and we rented a rehearsal space and like wrote and stuff, and that was a good escape for a little while. But it was short lived.
But like now, like how good is it to be
Yeah.
back on stage and like your music is being played to people that love your band? Like,
Totally. No, it's crazy. And I remember that first gig back was in Phoenix. It was in Tempe, actually, I believe. And man, it was just so like emotional to have a room full of people again, just like feel the energy. And um it was a really special night. And there were a lot of people that have been fans since day one that showed up to that gig, and like they were there to sort of rejoice with us for the first time again. It was really cool.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. So when do you guys jump back on the road? I know you're in Vancouver, Rickshaw Theater, September 5th. Great venue, by the way, if you've never been.
Yeah, I've only been to Vancouver once, and that was just a little pass through to go up to Whistler to go skiing. But I've heard nothing but great things about the city. I got buddies that live down in like Newport Beach that played for the Canucks and stuff, and they just love the city. So they're like, you're gonna have a blast. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to just getting to Canada as a whole. Like we've never really played anywhere other than Toronto and Montreal. So
Well,
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good to get up there finally. And especially Vancouver. That's one of the sites that I just remember in the early days sending a lot of merch to and stuff. When I was doing it from my apartment before we had a merch company, and like I was like, who are all these people in British Columbia that know about us?
That's awesome. So you're
Yeah.
mentioning NHL buddies. Like, talk about playing the Winter Classic,
Yeah.
and the decision to play a cover of Prince's "Let's Go Crazy." Like, great choice, man. I know you guys play that a lot in your live shows, but
Well, that was sort of after the fact, after we recorded it, that was sort of an addition to the live show. But yeah, TNT called us, and they'd heard about us, like the producer of the broadcast had heard about us on Spittin' Chicklets, actually.
okay,
And he was like following our career ever since, and he just thought, man, we're looking for an artist to do like a rock cover of a Prince song, because the Winter Classic was in Minneapolis, and he's like, I immediately thought of you guys, and just see if there's a tune that maybe speaks to you, and see if you can do something interesting with it, or if you guys are even interested in doing this little project. And I was like, obviously, of course, I'd love to do something.
are you a hockey
And
fan?
yeah,
Do you
big
watch?
hockey fan, and obviously a big Prince fan. And I had heard a version of Prince doing "Let's Go Crazy" with like a heavier riff to it, and we kind of built this cover on that idea, and really put our own little spin on it. And that was a big determining factor in whether or not we were going to do the music, because like you got to make it, if you're going to do a cover, you got to make it your own.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we did our thing with it, and they were cool enough to have us, fly us up to Duluth and shoot on a frozen lake and do all this crazy drone footage with this drone operator I've been trying to do some stuff with for a long time. He's like a famous cinematographer.
Okay.
So it was really like magical, um, like conglomeration of all these interests I've had and people I've wanted to work with, and hockey, obviously. So it was the guys were not too thrilled about being in Duluth in the middle of winter, but it was fine.
Yeah, totally. So, you guys are from LA.
I'm from Albany,
Okay,
but yeah, we all
but
the band formed here for
essentially
sure.
formed in
Yeah,
LA. Yeah.
yeah,
So what's the scene like there now? Like, of course, we know the infamous, days of the Crew and GNR and all that, but like,
yeah.
what's it like present day?
Man, I wish I knew. I haven't been here. This is my fourth day in LA in the last 3 months, so I've only been home since Sunday, since
Oh
the
wow.
European run. So I haven't gotten out, to see live music since I've been home, obviously. But before I left, there was definitely a little bit of that like post punk thing, whatever they're calling it now, is kind of bigger. Um, when we sort of started, like around 2018, there was a lot of bands in like the Silver Lake scene, it was called, very hipster, like rock scene, a lot of keyboards in the music. It was like this softer, like hipster genre of rock with a lot of like synths and a lot of
Mm.
Vampire Weekend sounding
I was gonna say
stuff.
like a Silver Sun pickups or
Yeah.
something like
Like
that.
not a lot of virtuoso blues guitar playing, a lot of like the more simple, um, almost like singer-songwriter rock, I would call it.
Mm.
So that wasn't really my scene, never was.
Yeah, it's
But
kind of obvious with the music.
yeah. But I did like some of the music. It's just it very much felt like a fad to me. And a lot of people were like, you guys need to go out to Silver Lake and play at the Silver Lake Lounge or whatever. Like, and I was like, I don't care. I don't really care about that at all. That's not,
Yeah,
we don't fit there. It's not my
right.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a lot of that, but there's some young bands. We took one out at our gig out here in San Diego. There's a band called Saint Electric that's like a little more rock and roll, a little more punk. They're pretty cool. Obviously, Joyous Wolf is like a rock and roll band that we took out. So there's some things happening for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And talk about your, guitarist, John, and Guitar World said he was, like, number 24, the hottest fucking new
Number
guitarist or
24,
whatever, like,
he's probably
that's it,
offended.
like, in their current issue, dude, that's crazy, man.
No, it's awesome. He's obviously he's an amazing guitar player, and he's the one that's been with me on this journey the longest. So
Oh, okay.
we definitely have a special connection. But man, he's a maniac. He's a maniac both on and off the stage, and he's really he's just loving like the entire life. He's a true like rock and roll spirit, and in every sense of the phrase, he really lives that life, and um but most importantly, he's a great like riff writer. He I say a lot like when he has an idea for a riff and he's really honed in on it, like he's the one person that really like can arrange an entire song of music if he's inspired. Like he'll go the distance on something, which is really rare for us. And usually get like 4 of those ideas a year, which are like great. Um, and it's like all the way through. That was California Dreamin' was one of those.
Yeah. To start the album,
Stars,
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
There's a handful of others, but
Well, talk
those are the
about,
moments when he sends me like a note, like a voice note or like a demo, and I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be good.
here we go, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about, When I'm Gone, because, of course, that's a big song for you guys. I mean, it's the
Yep.
first unsigned band to have number 1 on the what is it, mainstream rock charts on Billboard or whatever it was.
Yep.
So how did that, like, is that one of those songs that just kinda came together and, like, real fast, or you know what I mean? Like, sometimes songs do that, right?
They do. Yeah. I think that one was it was an interesting thing. Like I'm very much an advocate of not giving up on something you really believe in, whether it's a riff or a melody or like a lyric or something like that. And I had these two. John wrote the riff, and I had a completely other song with another riff that I really loved that I'd like to revisit. But the chorus, the chorus melody was in this other song.
Oh,
And so one day I don't know why I did it. I don't know how it happened. I can't even tell you where I was, or I just remember being on my couch and I played the acoustic to the When I'm Gone riff. And then I took this other chorus and floated it into what is now When I'm Gone. And I was like, I think this is pretty good. And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. Didn't think anything of it. And then
hmm,
flash forward, we went out to Austin and did a demo of it with a buddy. And then, it that like really sparked everything when my manager was kind of sniffing around and we were searching for management and we had some stuff going on with record labels and everything, and he heard that song and he was like, whoa, like that's something special for sure.
yeah,
And that was the catalyst for everything just kicking off.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious, Mark, what was the music in your house like as a kid growing up?
I grew up in I don't want to I call it maybe a broken home, like it's a very traditional American upbringing where, like my dad and I would travel on weekends every weekend for hockey tournaments, lacrosse tournaments, whatever.
Yeah,
And I lived with my mom and my stepdad, and I had a brother and a half brother and a stepbrother and a stepsister. It's like a crazy family to follow. So, it was kind of all over the place, but it was always rock and roll. Like my dad, he would always be pumping Permanent Vacation in the car on like hockey trips, or um he'd have more James Brown, like he listened to a lot. He loved like a lot of the older stuff. But my stepdad also like had the deeper Arrow. He had an insane like CD collection of like Aerosmith. He's a huge Stones fan, Tom Petty. So I was exposed to all that. Brian Adams was a big one.
mm.
My mom loves Brian Adams and Rod Stewart.
My
And then
buddy's the drummer in, Bryan Adams' band.
oh really?
Pat
I've seen
Stewart, yeah.
him probably a dozen times in my life.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, my brother, I remember my brother specifically and I really bonding over Californication by the Chili Peppers. And then my stepbrother, of course, having Shake Your Moneymaker on, and like
Yeah.
really that like early 90s rock stuff.
Well, you guys did some shows with the Crows, didn't you?
Did a whole tour with them. Yeah.
Deadly.
Yeah. They're amazing. I'm
My
going to go see them this weekend, actually.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What was your first concert?
Aerosmith in Saratoga. Yeah.
Wow.
I think I want to say either Kiss or like Fuel opened. Um, yeah, it was awesome, man. I met them that morning. I was like a little kid and I met Aerosmith, like my heroes. And that really sparked an interest in wanting to be a musician, at an early age.
Oh, I bet, yeah. And so now you look back and you're like, man, all these bands that I grew up with, like you've been on fucking tour with like GNR and
I know.
Kiss and Slash and like, dude, it's crazy, man.
It's yeah, you definitely gotta step back and pinch yourself when you're having experiences like this. And I was telling my agent in Europe, he was like, "Who's like your dream act to tour with?" I mean, you guys have checked a lot of the dream boxes, and for me, that's Guns and the Black Crows, and the Who is a big one too. I think the only ones left in terms of like the legacy acts would be like Aerosmith, AC/DC, and the Stones. That's like, I'd be like, okay, this
Yeah.
is what else could I ask for? you
Could
know.
you pick a career highlight or is that just like way too hard?
One highlight, yeah, would be tough. That'd be tough. There's already been so many. It's like, again, yeah, pinch me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, I don't know honestly how much time I have with you, so I just want to blast through. I want to get outside of music a
Yeah,
little bit.
I got nothing till like 11:45, so you're
Okay,
good.
nice. Okay, nice. Okay, so let's get outside of music then and kind of get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
So what are you binge watching right now? Like what are the shows you're like, man, such a good show.
Man, the last thing I watched, because my buddy was in it, actually, was The Terminal List on is it on it's on Amazon. It's like the Chris Pratt, Taylor Kitsch, military like conspiracy thriller series. It's really good. It's really well done, but it's interesting to it's always interesting to watch something that like a friend is in, and
Yeah, totally
see
right.
if he's got that like weird look in his eye where it's like, sometimes like you look at something and you're like, I don't know that person I'm watching, and but sometimes you watch it and you're like, oh, that's totally him. So
Yeah.
it's fun for me. But that
Hell yeah.
was the big one that I watched recently. And then the only other thing I really sought out was Top Gun 2. And that was like amazing.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but every person I've talked to is like, man, I feel like I was a little kid again. And I
Totally.
couldn't believe that the movie was ending. It was so freaking good.
It
Like,
was awesome, man. That's super like close to my heart, is that was like one of the first movies I really remember ever seeing and
yeah,
like having a thing with. Um, so for it to come back around, however many years later is pretty cool.
yeah. Which superhero is your favorite? Like
Dude, I don't
Wolverine?
I don't care about any of those.
You
Like
don't you don't watch any of that shit,
no,
really?
I don't watch any of that stuff.
Wow.
I did watch the Batman on the flight home from Europe, but
Oh,
it's just
the
because it was
latest
like,
with
yeah, with
Rob
Pattinson.
Pattinson? Yeah, yeah.
It was
It's
really
pretty good.
good. But yeah, I'm not like a big superhero
Huh,
like comic book movie guy. I typically like the movies to be rooted in some sort of reality.
right. Well, I
You know,
think
I'm
Batman would probably be as close as you could possibly get for a super like, he's just a dude that can fight.
yeah, I mean, on some level, I'm sure all the comic book like superheroes are. That's what makes them like relatable. But yeah, I read so many when I first moved to LA. I was like a script reader for a second, and like I
Okay.
read so many like bad scripts that when you see a film that really like it's all about the script, and like obviously somebody wrote something that was so amazing that it was unavoidable to pass it over.
Yeah.
um you really gravitate towards those films. And the last one in recent memory that I saw that I could see like just being a great piece of paper with awesome words on it was probably the Green Book. It was just like a movie about a black jazz musician, like going around the country dealing with racism in like, I don't know, the 50s or the 40s or something. And it was,
Oh, okay.
his driver was Viggo Mortensen, and it was great. It was an amazing movie.
How do you get into a job like that? Like reading, like I didn't even know that
It's
job
pretty
exists.
common. Production companies have these people, interns usually, that read scripts, and um, they do what's called coverage. You write a little summary on it, and
Mm,
there's higher ups that will read it and say, maybe this is worth my time to take 2 hours and read this
right.
script, and that's how they sort of weed out stuff initially. But yeah, it wasn't that interesting. It was I think in the whole time I must have read hundreds of scripts. I probably read one that I thought was good.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That bad, hey.
Well, it's not that they're all awful. It's like a lot of them are very formulaic in their
Oh.
approach. It's like, like an
Well,
ex
don't they
Navy
say that
SEAL.
there's only like 5 storylines or something like that that you
It
can
probably, yeah,
write about
right.
or whatever, you know?
So yeah, ex Navy SEAL falls in love with a like woman in distress, like that's fighting the cartel, was like a common
Wow.
whatever.
Right. What's the worst job you've had?
During the pandemic, I was definitely you know, looking for some means of income. We all were, and we the whole band at one point was like trimming weed at this like weed factory in LA, and it was hell, dude. It was hell. Justin was very excited at first, and then he was like, "This sucks."
At first.
Yeah,
What
he
does it cost for an ounce down in LA?
an ounce. That'd be a Justin question. I wouldn't know. I'm
Mm,
yeah, I don't smoke too much. He'd be able to tell you the prices for different types of weed, I'm sure.
different strains and shit,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me hit you with an oddball one. Do you believe that aliens have visited Earth or maybe even live among us?
Live among us? I don't know about that, but I'm sure they visited Earth. There's no doubt. I get wrapped up a lot like in our perception of time,
Yeah.
because people are like, oh, like aliens haven't come in a million years, but whatever, however long. But if you think of our life, if you think of human existence, and how long we've been here, um, I don't know how many millions of years that's been, but I- even if they haven't come in a billion years, if you're some sort of life form that can travel through light years of time to get here, a billion years probably isn't that long. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's probably not it's probably just not too strange that they haven't been here in a million or 10 million or 100 million years.
I'm just high enough to enjoy that reply.
Yeah, there you go. I'd love to talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson about that sometime.
Okay, so we know that you're a hockey fan. What other sports do you get into? What's your team?
Yeah, I'm a big Penguins fan, always have been since I was a little kid.
Penguins. Interesting. Why is that?
Yeah. I just loved when I was little, I just loved that penguin logo. I think that's what really grabbed me. And they weren't too far from where I grew up. They were like 5 or 6 hours away.
Okay.
But I kind of grew up around Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, New York Rangers, Islanders, Penguins, Philly. They were all in the Northeast, within reach,
Yep, yep.
usually on TV. Um, but yeah, I grew up going to a lot of Ranger games. My first game ever was up in Montreal, with my dad, during like a hockey trip. We were up there for a hockey thing, and they just happened to be in town that weekend, and we caught a game. But yeah, it's crazy, and it's turned into friendships with like Henrik Lundqvist of the
No way.
Rangers, and
Cool.
he loves music and loves playing guitar, and that's always been fun. But um yeah, man, I try and catch a game. If there's a game going on in a city that we're in on a night off, I'm usually there.
Nice. Do you watch the fights, UFC, Bellator, and all that?
I do, very casually, very passively, but I'm not like obsessed with UFC or anything. I'd rather watch hockey. I'm very into the World Cup. I love that. And I do love the Tampa Bay Bucks, man. That's been a torture of mine for a long time, and now it's it's been awesome. It's
That's
kind of
awesome.
like cheating though that Tom Brady's on the team,
I know, right?
It's
How do you
kind of
feel
it's
about
kind of
that?
a like veiled happiness because you're definitely into I mean, obviously you want to see the team win, but just for the the quality of the team to change so drastically from one player is just wild.
I know, isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. All right, Mark, I'm going to respect your time, dude. I'll ask you one more question
Yep.
and we'll wrap it up. So I want you to share a near death story where you're like, holy shit, I should have just died there.
Hmm. I could have died. I don't know if I have one.
Well, knock wood.
Where I could have died. Man, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if I have one.
Huh, you're one of the few, man. I probably talked to 1,000 people on this podcast, and 900 have had stories.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oh, yeah, I got a good one for you actually. I won't say I should have died.
But could have.
I definitely could have died in a horrible death. But it's in the mountains. I was in Wyoming, and my buddy and I, we were we were trying to photograph. I love wildlife photography, so grizzly bears, wolves, moose, whatever. Mostly grizzly bears and wolves. And so it was actually during COVID. We were like looking to get out of the house. We go to, some of the national parks and buzz around that area. And obviously there's woodsy backcountry areas that aren't in the national parks and you can see some stuff. So we go out into the backcountry and we come across like a dead elk carcass and there's just birds flying all over it. And that's usually a pretty good sign that like a wolf or like a grizz, something is coming to feed on it. So we like sit on it for like a day and we're just, keeping our distance, hoping something comes around and we don't see anything. And the next morning we wake up and I go and I'm like, I'm gonna go check on the carcass, see if like something made on it overnight or whatever. And we parked probably 300 yards away from the kill site, we called it.
Yep.
And I'm walking towards this thing. I get like 50 yards away from it. And out of the corner of my eye, see three grizzly bears all on their hind legs looking at me walk towards their food. And I'm just like, holy shit. And you're not supposed to run.
No.
But what do? I was kind of in a position where I could see the bears, but my buddy who was back at our van couldn't. And I like turned back to him and I'm like, hey man, like grab the bear spray, grab the gun. And he's like, what? Couldn't hear me,
Just
couldn't understand
fucking
me.
grab the
I
shit.
was like, grab a fucking bear spray. He's like, what? And I just, in a split second decision, just decided I'm bolting. I'm bolting to this van. And hopefully they get the memo that something serious is going on. And they did. And they're like pointing at me laughing. And they're like, why is he running? And I like, when I got into earshot of them, I was like, fucking grizzly bears, like, let's go. And we jumped into a Jeep nearby and we kind of like rode over there safely. And these bears just like chilled with us for like 35, 40 minutes. And we got to photograph them, got some amazing photos. But
Wow.
yeah, I was running like for my life.
Yeah, you don't
At
mess
least
with
they weren't
bears
chasing me, but
and their food.
yeah, that's like they say that's like one of the two surefire ways like to get in a bad situation is like be in between a mother and their cubs or be near a grizz while they're protecting a food source, and that's not good.
Mm.
So
I had a black bear chase me up in when I was living up in Terrace,
really,
northern BC, and it chased me for about 100 meters or so. But
wow,
thankfully, I had probably about a 400 meter, you know, advantage
gap,
on
yeah,
him.
Yeah.
Dude, man, my whole body, like, even now telling the story, I'm fucking my whole like, every hair on my body was, like,
Yeah.
on end,
No, I'm
man.
sure.
I literally thought I was gonna die.
Yeah. I was right there with you. I mean, 3 Grizz, like,
Yeah.
I got I you don't have a chance against 1, you know?
No.
Um,
And what do you do? Like, y if it were to catch you, is it like the Grizzlies, are they like you ball up, or like, what do you do for that?
you're supposed to just, like,
Cut.
cover the back of your neck because they can't open their mouth too wide. They kind of have a pretty narrow gap, so, I mean, like, they're obviously gonna maul you and claw you, and that's obviously not good, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you probably don't have a chance if you wind up in that situation, but
Probably
you're
not, no.
supposed to just, yeah, ball up, cover your neck, and hope for the best and not
Cross
run
your
because
ass
they
goodbye.
they immediately think you're prey. But
Wow.
yeah, it's not good. You're supposed to have bear spray on you, and I usually do, and, I just didn't in that one, like, 90-second circumstance, and, I never again will go anywhere without it.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it
Crazy,
was
dude.
wild.
Yep,
I got some
that's a
good
new
picks,
guy.
though. We got some good picks.
Yeah, yeah. So what's the rest of 2022 looking like for Dirty Honey?
Yeah, just, we're going on tour in a couple 2 weeks here again in the States and Canada, and then, probably get into the studio and record a bunch of stuff that we've been working on, and,
Nice.
we'll, just go from there, see what's next. But yeah, making some more music and getting that stuff finished is definitely a major priority right now. So
Very cool. Well, I look forward to seeing your band, man. September 5th, Rickshaw Theater here in
yeah, can't
Vancouver.
wait. Can't wait for that.
Your band's easy to find on social media. Straight up, Dirty Honey Band on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
Dirty Honey Music on Facebook. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Awesome,
fun.
Mark. Thanks again, man, for
Yeah,
jumping
no
on the
worries, man.
podcast today. Say hi to the rest of the guys for me, and I guess we'll
We'll
see you
see you
online.
in Van City.